Hey, this is Professor Triplet, and I'm going to go through a quick tutorial on how to make the base of this pillar. I'm going to buzz through this really quick because it's all going to be on video, and you can stop it and watch it again if you need to go slower. So try to keep up. All right, first thing I'm going to do is go to this website here. This is my website, and I just pasted this picture in here, and I'm going to right click on it and say copy image. And then I'm going to open up Photoshop. And in Photoshop, I'm going to hit Control N, which is create new. And I get this little box up here that says clipboard. And it's recognizing that I have an image in my clipboard. And what I want to do is change the width to 1600. So now it's going to be square. And I'll change the name of this to ref_pillar. And that should be good enough. Say create. So it's a square image. I hit Control V, so pasting the clipboard in, and then I'm going to hit Control E just to merge it down. And now if I save this, Control Shift S to save as, I can save this as a JPEG, and we will go into 116, and how about week, oh, I think it's week 2 actually. All right, now pretty much done with Photoshop for now. Oh, here we go. These keep popping up on my other screen. So since it's a reference file, I don't need to have a huge file. If this was a texture, I wouldn't even save it as a JPEG, but for a reference file, I can, and I'll just make it large like that. It won't be too big then. Okay, so let's go to Maya. All right, so when I'm in Maya, what I want to do is, first of all, make a plane, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. I'll do 24. That's the default size of the grid. I have a changed grid size in here, and I just want it to be 1 by 1 because I don't want any kind of pattern on there, any grid on there, so I can see my reference. So let's name this thing ref_pillar. If you need to bring up your outliner, it's right here, or you could go into Windows Outliner right here. And so we have the outliner. We can select this. Let's put it into a layer while we're at it. So we'll go ahead and just click this little button here, double click on the layer, and this will pop up. And then we gotta name it ref_pillar. And then we'll leave the layer. Maya won't allow me to name two things the same thing, and it doesn't like spaces either. So we make sure we put underscores, and we make sure that we don't name these the same thing. So I'll just leave that layer name in there. And let's see if we can pop that there and say save. And now we have a layer here. So what the layer lets me do is, of course, I could hide this. I can also turn it into a template, which means you can see the outside, but you can't actually see, like touch the model, or I should say select it. Or a reference, which does the same thing. If I try to select it, it won't let me select it. At least not in the viewport. You can still select it here. So if to unreference it, just turn that off. But I'm going to leave it as a reference while I'm modeling with my curve. So while I still have this selected, though, let's rotate it 90 degrees in the X. So I could just dial in 90 like that. Or another way to do it is I could hold J on my keyboard while I'm rotating, which will snap to increments. It toggles my snap on. So if you look at the, I am not sure why these keep opening up in another window like this. But if I look at my tool settings here, tool settings are acting strange today. Let's see. There we go. Wow, that was weird. Don't know why it worked differently that time. Maybe I hit the wrong button. So anyway, if I hit J on my keyboard, you can see the snap set. It toggles on and off. So right now I have it at 562. I don't know why it's at that. Let's change that to just 15 is the default, and I'll turn it off. But when I hold J, it'll toggle back on. So hold J, and then I can snap to increments. So now it went and I turned it to 90. So I like to use the hotkey just because it lets me move things in the viewport. I don't have to worry about coming into here. Okay, so we've got this. We want it to be facing forward in the Z, so you can see my Z is facing that way, because when I do my curve, I'll be doing it in my front viewport. So all I did to get to my front viewport was to hit my spacebar, and then I hit it again while my cursor's over the front viewport, so it's context sensitive. So, but before I get to putting my curve down, let's get that texture on here. So I'm going to just right click and hold, and I'm going to drag down to assign new material. And so I get this little box that pops up, and I want to choose this Lambert material right here. And then normally the attribute editor will pop up. If it did not, you can just hit Control A, which toggles between the channel box and the attribute editor. I'm looking for the Lambert 2, and what I want to do is name this m_ref_pillar. So as you can see, I'm making a relationship between all of these things that are named ref pillar, so that I know that they're all related to each other. Okay, so let's put that texture in here, so I can go into here and go File. And if you get an error like this, Maya has been buggy lately. For some reason, when I go to add, sometimes when I go to add something in here, it's like it's not working correctly, and I think it's just a bug, and I haven't updated my Maya. So they probably fixed it already, but I need to update. So sometimes it works. So it just worked. I have to hit this little folder, and then it's going to give me this dialog box, and it's going to look, I can go ahead and look for this, or what I can do is come back to Photoshop, which for some reason just opened up in another window too. Don't know what's going on in my computer. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-S again for save, and I can just copy this path right here and close that, and then I can paste the path into here and then just hit open. It will actually take me to that path. So where we go, I can see that. And now I just have to hit 5 on my, or 6 on my keyboard. So at this point, I can go ahead and go to my front view. So I'm just going to tap my spacebar, go to my front view, tap it again, hit 6 on my keyboard, and I'm going to use my move tool, which is W, to move this so it's in the center of the world. By the way, if I want to scroll in and get it really precise, I can middle mouse drag and still use my widget tool. So in other words, if I, for instance, if I click on my widget here, so it only moves in the X direction, I can come closer where I can't see it, but I can middle mouse drag and I can still move it in the X direction. So that's a little trick. So if I click on the center here, I can still move it around like that. So anyway, I just want to show that off. Now that I have it aligned in the center, I'm going to start building it. So we always try to build things in the center of our world. Anytime we make objects. If we're going to go ahead and make a whole scene, then what we can do is we can make our objects in one file, and then we can import, or I should say reference, our objects into a scene file where we arrange them. But then that way, if we ever change the objects, then those changes just automatically come into our scene once we open our scene file. Okay, so let's go ahead and lock this guy down. We can't mess with that anymore. At this point, I could hide the grid. I don't have to look at it anymore because I've got my reference here. And we're going to go up to our curves, our Bezier curves right here, and I'll start dropping points. So before I do that, let me just explain the Bezier curve. If you do a single click, it drops a sharp point, and if you do a left click and drag without letting go, it will actually drag out a Bezier handle, which will give you a curvature. Now, what's really happening is that when you drag out the Bezier handle, you're actually getting 3 curve points. It's kind of underneath the hood. It allows you to manipulate it with the handle, but it's essentially like 3 curve points. It's the same thing when you drop a sharp one. It actually is doing like 3 curve points right on top of each other, so it becomes a sharp point. Now you won't see the repercussions of that by having like multiple edges on top of each other, but it's sort of how it works. Okay, so anyway, let's go ahead and single click once for a sharp point, single click again for another sharp point. Now here I'm going to click and drag at the apex. So I just click and drag, and I'm going to try to get this straight up and down. Because this is kind of like a perfect circular shape, it should be, the handles should be straight up and down. And then I can just single click right there, single click, find the apex again, about right there, click and drag, like so, single click, single click. Now it's okay if it's not perfect because I can change that later. So click and drag, single click, click and drag, single click, single click, and single click. Okay, now I'm going to hit Q on my keyboard. It'll drop that, and I can go ahead and take a look at this. You can see some of these are crooked, so I'm going to just right click and drag over to convert or control vertex while I'm over the curve. Okay, so I can select these two right here. Hit R on your keyboard if you want to straighten it. You can just scale it in the x-axis towards the center. This one right here that's not right, I can take this and move this up, or I can drag the whole thing up. I think that's what I really need to do, is drag that up like that, and now you can see it's following it much better. And you know, we're not making manufactured car pieces or something that someone's life is dependent on, so getting it close to the shape is what we need to do, but we don't need to obsess over it and make sure it's like absolutely perfect. But still, you know, try to be as precise as you can. So I'm gonna grab these, and I can scale these together, and it'll actually make a straight line like that. And I can go ahead and just pull that up a little bit, like so. And so the key is getting like the shape that you want in the most efficient manner, so with the least amount of points. So since I've got this shape and I don't have any extra points, only the ones I need, that's going to make this more efficient when I change it to polygons. It'll do a nice conversion. Okay, so let's go ahead and right click over this, go to object mode, like so. We can hide this now, and that shows us our curve. And I'm going to just tap on my spacebar, and I like to do the revolve when I'm in the perspective, just so I can see what's happening. Now I'm going to find my revolve tool. It's under surfaces right here. I'm going to hold control and double click so I can get my options on. You can see yours might look different than this. I'm going to hit reset so that they look the same if you have your default settings. It should look something like this. And we're going to change a couple things here. One thing I want to mention is that this 8 segments, I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to leave it NURBS for now, but we're changing it to polys eventually. So when I hit apply, you can see there's actually 8 like major segments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then of course that's where we start. I'm going to delete this because we're going to want them to be polys. But I want you to take note of that segment's 8. That's what that was. So if I up that, then if I up that to like 16, it'll be double. But when we're doing our polygons, we're going to want to turn the polygons on. And we're going to want to turn it to quads and this general tab. And then pick per surface number of isoparms. And we'll do that here too on the U and the V. Okay, let me explain what these do. So the V is going to be a multiple of these segments here. So if I take 3 times 8, I should have 24 sides, right? Okay, I have my heads up display on. If you don't have this on, please go to display, heads up display, and turn it on in your poly count right there. It should be check marked. And this way I can check how many edges. So this says 3, this says it's 8 segments, so I'm going to hit apply after I select it. And then I'm going to right click and drag to edge, and I'll just double click on an edge, and that will give me the whole edge loop. And if you look up here, it says that I have 24 edges selected. So that seems to be accurate. If this is 3 and this is 8 and they're multiplied, then 24 edges should be what it would say. So that's right. Now what does the U number do? The U number is, let's delete this. The U number looks at the number of control verts, and basically it drops polygon strips between these control verts. So if you have 3 here, in between each control vert, after, I think it's after the first one, it does 1, 2, 3 strips. 1, 2, 3 strips. Okay, so if I leave it like this, I go to object mode, select this and just hit apply. And we can count here. Go to faces. 1, 2, 3 strips between where, we'll go to our front view so we can see it better. You can see the curve right there. So this is where the curve was. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 between where the point was on these two spots. Here we got 1, 2, 3, 3 there, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth until you get all the way to the top. So that's how that works. Now, one of the things that we have to be aware of is poly count. So, for instance, I'm a game artist, so I could put this into a scene. It's fine. You know, the game engine can handle it. It's how many, 2016 triangles. So it wouldn't be too terrible. But, you know, if I do 20, 30, 40 of these, you're going to have to multiply that 2016 triangles by however many I do. So that's going to get kind of high. So we have to be cognizant of that, you know, and we have to ask, like, well, can we get away with doing, let's say, I don't know, instead of 3 and 3, can we get away with 2 and 2? So let's go 2 and 2. And hit apply. Okay. Now obviously this one looks a little bit better. But if we're doing this, if we're looking at this in a real-time viewer like Sketchfab or Unreal or something like that, this is going to be a lot more efficient. I mean, it's over 1,000 triangles less than this one. So even if we're in Maya, if we're going to stay in Maya, we could consider that eventually we would turn this into a sub D. So if you hit 3 on your keyboard, you can look at it in smooth preview mode. And the sub D could look like this, where it's smoothed out. Of course, we might want to tighten our corners a little bit, but that's a different lesson. But anyway, so my point is that just be cognizant of how many triangles you're putting in your scene, how many polys, or I should say faces. It's just, you know, it's one of those things that can get out of control if you don't understand that, you know, your computer's resources are finite. You know, eventually you will run out of resources. So anyway, that's how you you make a pillar, and definitely make sure that you understand that, you know, this V number multiplies by this, and this multiplies by how many points you have, or it runs in between the points, I should say. And so that'll help you create the best objects. Let me go ahead and do one more thing here while I'm at it. Let's just delete these. Let's do this. We'll duplicate it, Control D, and I'll just drag it over here. I'll select these two, and let's do a loft. So I'll double click this. I hold Control and double click, by the way. And I'll reset this again like it is in the beginning. So obviously, so it says spans 1, so hit apply. So that spans right there is, you know, is there going to be any, you know, extra spans in the middle. So if I delete this and I did it again with 2, or let's just do 3, select this, shift select this, hit apply, and you can see now there's 3 between there, and it rendered the other side for some reason, but we can flip that later. So let's delete that again. So we want to make it into polygons. So again, we're going to have the same kind of situation here. So general, turn this to the per number of isoparms on the bottom here. Okay, so 3 is going to be 3, or I should say this number is going to get multiplied by this, so it'll be 9 in between here. And this number right here is going to look at the control points. So what we can do really is, since let's say if we're doing a straight piece right here, we don't need 3 in this box. We can just go with 1, because we just, you know, and we can actually make this one as well. So we can do that. And then let's say we want it smoother going up this way, and we can just hit apply now, and let's see what happens. Okay, so now we get this nice looking thing here, and let's assume that we want to look at the other side of it. So it's a polygon. We can go to mesh display reverse, and so now we can see this side of it. So you can see how nice that looks, and it's not too terribly high poly. It's only 84 triangles, so not too bad. So that's how you would do a loft with this. You just have to understand this, the numbers still apply. You're just you're not revolving it around a circle. You're just separating this thing up. So since we just want one little separation, then we just change this to 1, change this to 1. And that's it. That's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.